Thank you, Linda and Marion, for the conversation. I'm interested about the, the issues that you think the government should be confronting about violence against women and girls, because we are seeing such a level and prevalence of violence against women and girls. I'm interested from your experience what you think the government should be doing as a priority.
So I guess for us, we work with more than 2,000 women a year, from crisis support through to through all the recovery, through to employability. That would be towards the end of our services, and over 250 children. The things that women are really concerned about are absolutely around the issue of housing, because that has a massive impact on their ability to move on. The housing crisis has had a huge impact on our ability to deliver our refuge services, because women are staying longer and longer in refuge and not being able to move on with their lives as a result. And added to that, the situation for homelessness for women can be really, really problematic. Staying in B&Bs with small children, or just not being able to, not even being able to stay in Edinburgh, being moved to Newcastle or to Aberdeen, and then trying to maintain education and things like that for their children. So that's a massive issue for women. Along with that, I suppose the kind of justice responses are an increasing concern. So what we're seeing, especially, if we're talking about risk to women, we're seeing consistent breaches of bail, and these not just being taken seriously enough, and then women eventually saying to us, I'm not going to report that anymore, because there's no point in reporting it, because nothing's been done when it reaches bail.
That obviously has a huge issue in relation to women's safety,
Yes.
which has prompted so much of the concern that certainly I feel about this issue.
Absolutely. And I think, when we're looking at the increased numbers coming through, so our numbers have increased massively over the last few years. And I think that's partly is the success of the Domestic Abuse Scotland Act. So just the impact that's had in society in terms of understanding what domestic abuse is and what is criminal behaviour.
There to say this is criminal behaviour.
Absolutely.
It can get us a remedy. But it's obviously it has a whole follow-through implication for
absolutely.
women and families.
Absolutely.
And what about in the BME community, Miriam? What are the issues, or the way in which cases are emerging different in any way?
So the abuse and the perpetrator's behaviours tend to be quite similar to white Scottish women, but what we find is that there's a lot more barriers to support. What we're needing more is organisations that can provide a whole system approach. So rather than women going to like 20 different organisations, organisations like Amina, we are what we call a one-stop shop. So, we support women when it comes to crisis intervention, but then we take on a very holistic model. So whether it's employability, financial advocacy, housing support, but that can be quite time intensive.
But you're essentially working very closely with women to support them at all times. And I think that's a point that I'm very conscious of, recognising the work that we do in eradicating child poverty, for example, is all done on the basis of support for families, and you're doing exactly the same.
And when you're looking at ethnic minority women, they tend to be in higher levels of poverty, and then adding on to that with no recourse to public funds, we have women who are completely destitute. You do find that organisations like Amina have to fundraise ourselves to provide things like nappies or emergency hotel rooms, when there's just no system for women to access any other money, because of the stamp on their passport allows them no rights at all. So that can be quite challenging. What I would say is that what we're definitely seeing is a rise in cases. So as much as caseworkers want to do the whole system approach, and really support the women, give them that wraparound service, it just seems to be one case after the other, right? Is she in immediate danger? Right, okay, this is what we deal with. And that's not where we want to be. But when we were speaking to other organisations, they're the same. So what we're worried about is that women are not getting the kind of service that they need, which is some to pick up the phone and somebody to say, absolutely come in for an appointment, rather than saying, sorry, our waiting lists are completely full.
And I think the reality is we would never want to be the only service for women. Should be able to access all of the public services that they have the right to. But I guess what we're seeing with the impact of austerity really is that a lot of those mainstream services that were almost never available to you or never available easily to your women are very difficult to access, and quite often some of the things that we would be seeing is, for example, social work closing cases because the women's engaging with women's aid, and it's like, but we're not social workers, we can't provide that level of service, and therefore it needs everybody to be looking at the issue through that lens.
And then in terms of the demand that you face for services and the prevalence of violence against women and girls, do you see that as having a relationship with all the digital content that people are now seeing?
Yeah, the red pill movement, as it's called, you know, and we definitely do see that online misogyny. There tends to be a lack of compassion and empathy online, so it's kind of, you know, we can say whatever we want about women, you know, and it's absolutely fine. It's almost like the standards have become so low that it's normalised now, and we need to say no in the Scottish society.
Do you think that there's a role for government to essentially give a lead to say, look, there is a level of dialogue and discourse which is just not acceptable.
And so what we've been seeing is over the last few years is more and more schools getting in touch with us because they're not sure what to do about the increasing levels of misogyny amongst young boys in the school. And so we've started a Young Women and Girls project, and that's working with girls of secondary school age who are being abused in their peer relationships, and that's really been an area where we've seen that increase in. We've had schools getting in touch with us because they're so concerned about the behaviour of boys towards female teachers that they're really worried about what is happening to the girls in our school if that's the level of behaviour towards female teachers. And now we're starting to get contact from primary schools. So I think, you know, really seeing that escalating needs.
So that digital footprint is a key challenge for us as to what the government should do. Lastly, what would you say to me that I should concentrate on in giving leadership to tackling violence against women and girls?
I would say your economic policies that support women to access safety and move on. So when you're looking at housing, better employment rights, and I think housing tends to always be that big sticking point for women. But when it comes to looking at economic policies that can empower women who are experiencing domestic abuse, to me, that is the key to solving that. And then also, I suppose, we've all said this in the roundtable, which was more provision for organisations that are providing direct intervention.
And I think that thread of that understanding of gender inequality, its roots in violence against women, and having that thread through all policies. I think, you know, absolutely economic policy is a priority, but I think when we're talking about a whole systems approach, we can't be siloed into this is violence against women and this is where it sits. We can't resolve this without involving everybody.
Every public service. Well, look, that's really good counsel that you've both given me, so thank you, Miriam, thank you, Linda. It's been a really helpful conversation to add to my thinking about what the government does to tackle what is a pernicious and unacceptable problem in our society.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in it. It's really appreciated.
It's really appreciated. Thank you for your time today as well.